More music, more soul on your interactive radio station. Soul Legends Radio.
Discover the best dance music in the world. Don't forget to join the Sorcerer of Soul, Tim Adams, every Sunday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. GMT. Only on your favorite soul station, Soul Legends Radio. Radio.
In the mix.
Yes, indeed, this is Soul Legends Radio. It's the Crazeology radio show right here every Saturday mornings or late Sunday night into the early hours of Monday morning. Hour two of the show, if you've been listening for, about 152, 153 shows now. You will know I'll have a guest, and my guest this week is a jazz man from the United States of America. I caught up with him earlier on this year. Seems like yesterday, but it was a few months ago. His name is Dimitrije Vasiljević. He's got a great story behind him and how he ended up in the United States. Plays some brilliant music as well. So I've got a 3-part interview and 4 of his tunes coming up. And as always, before the last song, I will come back to you and let you know what I've been playing in this hour. Don't forget, hour 3 is the vinyl years of my life as well. So I'm just going to welcome Dimitrije to the show, and we're going to start off with the song "Just Fly." Dimitrije. On today's show, I'm talking to a pianist, a jazz pianist, originally from Serbia, now residing in the great city of New Orleans. Another city that's on my bucket list. I've got so many now that I think when I retire, whenever I'm allowed to retire, finances dependent, I'll be spending the rest of my life just touring all these cities on the bucket list. So we're going to talk to Dimitrije Vasiljević. Hopefully I got the name right, and he'll tell me if I got it wrong or right, about his new album out on Rope-a-Dope Records, but also about his career and that journey from Serbia to New Orleans via the Berklee College of Music and New York City as well. Dimitri, welcome.
Hi Nick, thank you very much for inviting me to your show. I'm really glad to be here today over Skype.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for pronouncing my name real good. I know it's not the easiest of names, but I think you pronounce it really, really good.
Well, I have to say, sometimes when I'm actually doing radio, and I just choose music. I choose music randomly. There is no... People say to me, what is your process for choosing music for your radio show? I say, well, I get lots of new releases, and I just sort of listen to bits of the new releases and think, oh, that's a nice tune, put that in. But I don't ever look at the artists' names. So you can imagine sometimes the mess I get myself in. And sometimes I just say, okay, I'll give up now. And this is the name of the tune, and away we go. You're actually in Serbia at the moment. You've got unusual for a jazz musician, a bit of a break till the middle of August. It's a bit of a quiet summer for you, I understand.
It is, yes. As a matter of fact, I started my academic journey as a university professor last year. So I just finished. So this May, I finished my first year as assistant professor of music at the Xavier University of New Orleans. So since I had a big change in my life, being a professor for the first time, I really wanted to take this summer off and just go to Serbia, see my family, reconnect with some old friends, and just to take a break from constant gigging and playing concerts. But I'll be back in the business from September on.
Yeah, because it is a busy life being a jazz performer. Because unlike pop royalty, it's you have to go out and earn, as I always say, earn your money. So there is a lot of gigging and a lot of touring.
Exactly right,
and
you never know what's around the corner. So you want to be open for different kinds of offers, different kinds of concerts or gigs or whatever kind of event seems interesting to you. You want to take it regardless of when is that scheduled for. Yeah,
you've stolen what I was going to move on to. Yeah, that's right. Because you never know, as you say, you're performing, you're catching the eye of other jazz musicians, and that's the fascinating thing about jazz is that the way people all interlink with each other and work. So, if you miss that opportunity, the opportunity's gone. But
exactly, we are all like a big family, all around the world, regardless, what country are we from or what style we're playing in jazz. We collaborate with each other, travel a lot. So that's something I really, really like about my job.
And you've collaborated with some great people, and we'll come on to that a little bit later on. So, are you actually? Obviously, you're in Serbia, you're on holiday, but are you still practicing the piano? Because
I am. I'm trying to actually. Right now, I'm in the process of rebuilding my old childhood upright piano. So at the moment, I'm not practicing, but I'm actually eager to start practicing on a rebuilt one. So, but what I'm doing now, I'm actually working on my new album. Although I just released one, but I'm working on a solo piano album. So I'm composing a lot these days.
Okay, so you're sort of moving from the traditional jazz setting to a solo piano album.
That's right, yes.
And your journey, obviously, from Serbia, but we'll move on to that in a moment. But you say you're assistant professor of music. Get my tongue.
That's correct, yes.
You're so young to be a professor of music.
Thank you for saying that. I feel old.
So I've always been interested in this because I don't talk to many professors. I've talked to doctors, and how does one become a professor of music?
Well, you have to become a doctor first.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's a secret. Right. That's me gone then.
But but the thing is, what I did. Speaking of my journey from Serbia to America, back in 2007, I graduated from Faculty of Music in Serbia, and I played classical music there. I did a lot of music theory, and of course I played jazz, but I really didn't feel like I was ready to play serious concerts, serious gigs. I really needed more education, the conventional jazz education. And I decided to go and apply for Berklee College of Music in Boston, and I was lucky to get a scholarship and to actually get accepted. So there I was in 2007 at Berklee. And it was really hard at the beginning, because, Berklee College of Music is such a big name, and, lots of things are kind of linked and connected to that name. And lots of young musicians think that, it is... When you get there, you will immediately become a big star, which is obviously not true. But Berklee gives you some really, really good opportunities to learn and to connect with other musicians from all around the world. So there I was, for the next 3 years, I was practicing really hard, 6-7 hours a day, meeting new people, playing constantly with, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, and I really, really benefited from that. After that, I moved to New York, started playing there, and I started my master's at NYU, which was also great because I got my first job at NYU as an adjunct professor while I was studying master's. And that's where I started really, playing seriously with some more well-known people. I created my own quartet. I recorded my first album and played all the big concerts like Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center, etc. But then after my master's, and when my career really, really kind of touched the peak point at that moment, I realized that the life of a jazz musician is an unstable one, in terms of make living. So I really decided to go on for a doctorate, to get a doctorate and to become a university professor, because I really wanted to have a stable job. I wanted to have a stable life, and yet to remain being a concert pianist and a composer. So that's how I ended up in a doctoral program at University of Illinois. And then I made a break of 3 years. I didn't play, my music. Of course, I played as a sideman a lot in Chicago and elsewhere. But I made a break in my kind of, author performances, and just dedicated myself completely to finishing my doctorate. And after my doctorate in Illinois, I got a job in New Orleans, which was, I think, just a perfect scenario because, I wanted to go to the city of jazz. And there you go.
Yeah, so when you did your doctorate, obviously you did a thesis, which everyone has to write. So what was your thesis on?
Yes, my thesis was on jazz piano counterpoint. I was always interested in that. And I actually wrote a lot. It's like it is supposed to become a method book, so that was the way I was writing it. So main subjects in my thesis were Keith Jarrett's playing of counterpuntal jazz, Bill Evans's playing of harmonic counterpuntal jazz, and then finally Fred Hirsch's and Brad Meldau's approach to counterpuntal jazz.
That's an interesting range of musicians there, and actually, three of my favourite piano players of all time.
Nice! Good to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. There's no one like Bill Evans, and no one plays the piano like. Actually, all four of them.
There you go.
Keith Jarrett and Brad Meldale and Fred Hirsch, who's just released an album recently. Absolutely superb.
Yes.
So, in terms of when you get invited to become a professor, do you have to write another thesis, or you just get awarded the title?
No, the thing is, you go through an extensive process of interviewing. You have to do like a experimental class, so you have a jury who's giving you grades for that. And it's actually hard to get a professorship, especially if you're not a citizen of America. But I was lucky enough to end up down there. And another thing is that Xavier University of Louisiana is just starting with their jazz program. Before this past academic year, they only had the classical music department. So basically, I was the first professor of jazz who they hired, which is great because it really gave me a lot of freedom to create program, and to work with the chair of the department, Dr. Tim Turner, who's, by the way, a great jazz trumpet player. But he really gave me a lot of freedom to just try stuff and work with students on their jazz skills, whatever I in whichever way I'd like.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting that you're there at the beginning because it's fascinating when universities like to start up their jazz programs, and to actually be there at the beginning and to find that very first course, it must be fascinating. And how are you finding the students? Are there any rising stars there that we've got to look out for in the near future?
Well, the thing is, we have a lot of very talented students, and a lot of them are from New Orleans, which I think is the reason for it, because how it is in New Orleans. Everybody, almost everybody play the instrument, since their childhood, and there's constantly music on the streets and festivals and all that. So you can tell that young students are influenced by jazz from the very beginning of their lives, and immediately. 6 or 7 students out of all of them kind of stood out, and I started working intensively with them on jazz theory skills, on jazz improvisation, on jazz combo playing. And I really think they improved a lot. And I can see, they're still, undergraduate students, and they're still learning, but I think they're learning very quickly. And some of them are showing great potential so far.
Which is all good for the world of jazz, and long may it continue. In between, as you say, your journey, because it is a journey, and when I look,
it is, yeah,
and your educational career, your bachelor's degrees, you got. You see,
it was a very long schooling, yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah, you must have really enjoyed it, but obviously you've now reached that point. But in between that, you've played with some really great people, like Joe Lovano, Chris Potter, who I've actually seen live, Victor Garcia, to name but a few. Do you feel that in that time playing with those instrumentalists that you learnt a lot from them, because they're sort of masters at their own individual trade, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. I really got an opportunity to play with lots and lots of people, great people, good people, better than me, worse than me, same as me. But, these several individuals that you just named and several others are really something special, And when I first got an opportunity to play with them, I, only then really, really realized why they are, such a big stars. Because when you play with them, it really, the playing seems completely effortless, and they guide you and they inspire you. Before I started playing with them, I thought I might, I'd be probably, scared, I'd be freaking out. But of course I was scared, I was very nervous. But they really relaxed me with their approach, because music just pours through them and from them, and it was really, really, big school for me, just playing with them.
Yeah, and you're right. They do make it look easy. I have to say, I saw Chris Potter about 12 months ago, and he just absolutely makes it look easy. And just recently, I had the pleasure of seeing Christian McBride's big band, and there's Christian McBride just walks on double bass and plays the double bass as though he's eating a bowl of crisps or chips.
Right.
Yeah, It just makes it look so easy, and I get quite annoyed because when I play the guitar, it's awful. But no. Maybe I'm not a musician. Maybe I should stick to playing records. But yeah, it's amazing. Is that something that when you actually talk to your students that you actually instill into them, that it doesn't have to be a chore? That once you master it, it becomes easy. And all these greats. You've mentioned that you looked at the work of Keith Jarrett and people like that. They would actually make things look easy. Is that something you talk to your students about?
Yeah, I try to incorporate that kind of approach as much as I can in my teaching style, and I actually got a lot of that philosophy from a great book called Effortless Mastery by a great American jazz pianist, Kenny Werner, where he really talks about how each musician at their very beginnings are already master, they're already masters at their very beginnings of journey, even though they can't play at that moment, or, they're not as good as they can, as they will become later. But if you have that idea in your mind that, that mastery lies something deep within you and just waits to be, exposed at some moment, then your progress will be much, much better and much faster. At the same time, you need to be humble, of course, and to practice and to do your math and to do your homework for many, many years if you want that mastery to become available to you. So yes, I'm trying to teach that my students, and I'm trying to influence them in, not just as their teacher, but also as a player, as a composer. I'm trying to play a lot with them, to put them, on the spotlight, to give them last-minute gigs, stuff like that. So all of that is really jazz education,
And that's a good point from that book, because I think everyone's got a skill somewhere, and you can try many, many different things, and suddenly that skill will come. And for some people it's music, other people go on to be surgeons and doctors, other people go on to be lawyers, other people get to play music on the radio because they can spot a good tune from a mile off. And I think it is, once you find that, you are the master, which is correct at the beginning, and you then develop that over a number of years. And that's a really good cry. I will remember that, when I have a conversation with my friends, I say everyone's a master, and I will remember that. I'll pass that on to my children as well. You're a master at something. You just got to go and find out what it is.
It could be misguiding though, but
Well, it could be, but no, there are some people, and some people never find their way in life, but others do. And Dimitri, you're one of them. You found the jazz piano. your latest album, you've tied up with Rope-A-Dope, which, as I've said to you off air, I'm impressed with that label. I've got nothing but good to say about that label. They're finding wonderful people and putting good music out there. So how did you get to work with them?
Well, I recorded my new album Accidental Nomad last year when I was finishing my doctoral studies at University of Illinois. And I picked, for musicians, for my quintet, I picked all my good friends from their old doctoral students, who I played a lot during my doctoral studies there. And we recorded that album in several hours. So, I was thinking whether should I, release it, whether should I do self-release again like I did before with my previous two albums. But then a saxophone player for my quintet, Robert Brooks, told me that he recently released his album with his duo with for Rope-A-Dope Records, and he recommended them. So I contacted them, and Louis Marks, their person who's in charge at Rope-A-Dope, he replied to me and he said he liked the music and he's interested to sign a contract with me. So I guess the rest is history.
So obviously the album Accidental Nomad was recorded and ready to go, and it was that choice. And then we had we can talk about streaming versus CDs a little bit in a moment. It's that choice, isn't it, about self-release? Because there's a lot of hard work in self-releasing something that has to go along with it.
That's a very good question, and that's a question which I think people nowadays in this industry that is constantly changing can't answer. Nobody can really give you a good answer. Because I remember when I was releasing my first album, The Path of Silom, back in 2013, I think, I actually asked that question to several jazz greats in New York, and I asked them for advice, and almost all of them gave me advice and told me that I should do a self-release. So that's how I ended up doing that for CD Baby. But then several years later, considering I was happy with self-release. There was nothing wrong with that. Everything everything has gone smoothly. Everything was nice. But I really felt that I needed a record label, a serious record label to back me up, to give me a support, marketing-wise, media-wise. And I just think that an artist looks more serious in the eyes of media when they have a serious label behind them. It's almost like you're in a good football team. So the other thing is why I chose Rope-A-Dope Records is just because of they just seemed cool to me. They just seemed, like a label that will respond to my music, which is world jazz with, ethno elements, that they will respond well to that. And I wasn't wrong at all. I'm really, really happy with them. And, Louis Marks and Fabian and all those people, they are so helpful. They're so understanding. And they gave me, a lot of freedom, which is also important to me as an artist to have, to do with my music whatever I want, to play wherever I want, and they support me whenever they can. So I'm really, really happy with them.
Yeah, they are. Actually, I like the word "cool." They are a cool label, and they are, I would say, one of the cool labels in America at this moment in time.
Exactly right.
And in Europe, we have some cool labels as well. And I think the thing what I like about them, and it's not the first artist I've spoken to from Rope-A-Dope Records, is they're not like one of the majors. They give you that freedom, so they're not going to push you down an alley. They allow you to make the music, and they will put it out there, and they will actually back you and give you the marketing, and that's what a label gives you.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, when you self-release something, you've got to do everything. And yeah, you can put it on CD Baby, you can try and get it on Spotify, and may not reap the rewards from the streaming services, as we know. You don't reap rewards from them, but again, you've still got to do a lot of pushing, and you've got to get it out there to promo people and PR people.
That's true, yes.
And for them to get it in front of respectable DJs to play. So yeah, I can fully understand why you've gone with them, and I hope it's going to be a lasting relationship. So can you tell us a little bit about the album? Is there a story behind it?
Oh yes, I'm one of those artists who are trying to make and create a story, behind every title.
I
every
like
album.
stories behind albums.
Yeah. So just to give you a short background, my first album, which was called The Path of Sylvan, was really about medieval Serbian history, about Sylvans who were said to be mythical dogs who were accompanying Serbian knights from darkness to light. So it was some kind of a deep, it was some kind of exploration and search deep inside my roots, and who I am and where I am and what is going on with my musical being, and such and such. And then the second album, called Metaphor, was a solo piano album that was kind of a break from all that, and that was a new exploration. It was basically my first journey into solo piano. Now the third album, when I came back to the band setting, this time it's quintet. On the first album it was a quartet. I added a saxophone. This time this album is also about a journey, but it's about a journey outside of an artist, and it's called Accidental Nomad. So I never, it's really about my experience. I started from Serbia. I ended up in New Orleans. I traveled a lot. I moved a lot from city to city. Lived everywhere. And I never planned that when I was a kid. I was born in Serbia. I always loved music, and I just wanted to be a musician. That's all I knew. But life and music brought me to different wonderful places. And connected me with wonderful and interesting people. So that's why I call it Accidental Nomad. And the story behind that album is really about a accidental exploration of world and of world of music too.
And it's good when albums have got stories, because I do write album reviews, and when an album's got a story behind it, it makes my life a little easier.
That's good to hear.
You can start, you can start exploring things and saying, okay, right, does what this title of this song, does it actually reflect in the music? And yeah, when it's just a straight album, it's really difficult.
Right, and I believe it just relates better to audience, to people.
Yeah, you know what you're listening to, and when if you want to listen to a CD in a darkened room, and you've read the story behind it, you can imagine certain things that go.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
which is absolutely amazing. So when you get back to the States, are you going to be sort of on the road touring this album, or are you going to be working with other individuals as a sidesman again?
Yeah, what I'm planning, as I told you before, during my doctoral studies, which was the past 3 years, I stopped playing, my music. I just played as a sideman with some smaller bands and settings in Chicago. But now I'm trying to, make a comeback as an artist, with this CD. So I also signed a contract with the new and really, really interesting artist booking agency from New York called Eastlight Artist Management. So they're helping me now with the bookings, and I'm planning a European tour for next summer, and I'm also planning just playing a lot in New Orleans now, playing in New York and Chicago from September on with my trio from New Orleans and my quintet from Illinois, and my quartet in New York, because I have to have several bands, so I don't have, bring all the people, pay for the tickets and so forth. So, wherever I travel in America, I have my band, and then in that area I play with them.
Which is absolutely fantastic. And it's also good to have a good booking agent, because I've spoken to many people that have said, yeah, we spend a lot of time trying to book tours and talk to promoters and stuff like that, and which is, is okay, but it's very time consuming when you really want to do is...
It's very hard. It's very hard to book, and once again, festivals, venues, organizers are just, viewing you more seriously. So that's, as more serious artist, more dedicated artist, so that's it.
Superb. Well, Dimitri, it's been fascinating talking to you.
Thank you very much, Nick.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer break, and we look forward to the European tour next year.
Yep, I'll let you know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for joining me.